Welcome to the MEF2C Cast, a podcast dedicated to educating, supporting, and building community around MEF2C haploinsufficiency syndrome.
The MEF2C cast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Views expressed are those of the host and guests and not necessarily of the podcast or its sponsors. This is not medical advice. Consult a healthcare professional for medical concerns.
Alrighty, welcome to the MEF2C Cast. We are here with Meredith San Antonio and Aleah Vickers. They are both parents of children with MCHS, and they are also two of the founders of the new MEF2C Family Foundation. So, can you start each by just telling us a little bit about yourself and your families?
I'll go first. So I am Meredith and I live in Dallas. I have three kids, Benjamin, who is 5, Valentina, who is 2.5, and Lola, who is 6 months. Valentina is our special MEFD. And yeah, we started this journey with her diagnosis at a year and a half. But I mean, I think really it started from, a couple months old when we were figuring out like something was just not right. So, feels like longer than, the year and a half.
Right.
And Aaliyah, you go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. I'm Aleah. I am a mom to Bo, who is our MEFD. He's going to be 4 this month. And we also have a little brother, Wes, who will be 2 this summer. We live in Westchester, New York, which is a suburb of the city. And yeah, I think like I have also a unique story of having Bo as our first and just sort of like the position that puts you in as maybe a more ignorant parent who doesn't have that gut feeling so early on. So yeah, I'm excited to share.
Well, why don't you go ahead and tell us about how you figured out that Bo may be neurodivergent and what the process was like getting your diagnosis.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, Bo's our first and I talked to a lot of moms who like had this gut feeling and they weren't being believed and for me it was sort of the opposite. It's like nobody could tell me anything was wrong with my child. Like and to be fair, like he was just a little bit behind on everything at first. Everything could be sort of explained, like rolling couple months late crawling, like was doing an army crawl. A lot of people told me like their kids never even crawled. They just didn't crawl and then they walked. And like I really had an answer for everything. And even there were days where when I did, and I would say like plenty of kids walk late. And then some days where I would just like kind of put my hands on my forehead and say like, this is probably too much to be normal. But, Bo, I would find those days. I would find a lot of days where Bo's going to be okay. He's going to catch up. This happens to some kids. So he walked around 16 months when he didn't have any words at 18 months. We got into more early intervention. So then all of a sudden he was in like PT, OT, speech. And I asked the pediatrician at the 18-month appointment, should we take him to a developmental pediatrician? And in my mind, I thought like I only knew of autism. It's like I only thought he's either autistic or he's not. And between 18 months and 24 months, when his developmental pediatrician, we had to wait about 6 months. So in that time, it was just like, again, every other day, like signs of autism. I don't think so. Like, I don't think he has autism, but why isn't he responding to his name? That's just like this one thing. Like, he's never responding to his name. He doesn't listen to like simple instructions, but he's like very affectionate and personal and makes eye contact and recognizes when a person walks in the room. Like I was just so mixed on it. It was honestly like a very tortured place to be. And I think that people feel differently about getting a diagnosis like this earlier versus later. And personally, like I'm so glad that I was put out of that phase of my life because it was absolute torture living in the unknown. Eventually, we make it to the developmental pediatrician. He knows how to write the script for whole exome sequencing right off the bat. I think kind of like a couple of factors. Bo had febrile seizures. He noticed low tone, and I had a VSD, a hole in his heart, when I was pregnant with him, which closed and can be very common, but is often tied to a genetic condition. So we got the genetics done. I didn't think literally anything of it. In my mind, it's still like either he has autism or he doesn't, and genetics isn't going to show me autism. And much to my surprise, I got a result, an email that the results were in. I opened it. It didn't have the results. I called the geneticist who was out of office for the week. And so I called the lab and I said, I want the results. And I don't know if I should have done that, but I got the results and no context. And then we found like the Facebook group right away, Google, Facebook group, information overload and no relevant, helpful information at the
Oh, well.
same time. It was a really, really, really dark month. Getting that answer, which was such a non-answer for me, was like more unknowns. What's his life going to be like? I thought that he could have had a very normal life, and now I'm seeing something totally different. I think that what has driven me, it's been like like Meredith said, it's like, oh my God, I can't even believe that was, a year and a half ago. It might as well have been 10 years ago. I'm a totally different person than I
Right.
was
Yes.
before I opened that results
Yeah,
file.
our diagnosis it'll be a year ago next month. Like, it hasn't even been a full year yet. It's just nuts.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. And yeah, like I think I'll stop there because I think like the next chapter is totally, totally different. I think that it was a really, really tough month. And then I decided like I'm gonna do stuff about this. And then that's sort of like the next phase in which got a lot lighter, honestly.
I feel like we kind of had an opposite effect when we got our diagnosis, and we immediately found the Facebook page, and it felt like we got all of the answers, like right
Really?
away. Like every single box we were getting checked. Like, he wasn't walking, he's not talking, he's not doing all of these things that all of these other kids are doing, and it felt less
Yeah,
lonely,
I
I
w
guess.
I wouldn't say we got all the answers, but we
Yeah.
didn't feel alone anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you saw Leo in those posts.
Yes.
Right, yes.
And I feel like I didn't. And I think like I struggle with how to talk about this because I don't want mm, like Bo today Bo is almost 4. He's verbal. He's physically like, running, climbing, all of those things. Like we feel on the one hand like very, very lucky. First of all, like got lucky. Like nothing I did made him able to talk.
Right.
But at the same time, like it's very profound what we're dealing with. Like it's devastating, it's hard, it's lonely, and like this is my group. Like this is I'm you stuck with me because this is the diagnosis we have. So like I do struggle with kind of how to share about Bo. And I'll say that when I joined the group and I was sort of a little lost, I made a post and I said, I'm a little confused here. Like this is my son. He's starting to say some words. He's climbing. He's doing okay, I think, right? Like, and I had some parents reach out to me directly but privately to say my child was the same. They are verbal, like they can do these types of things. They're in a typical classroom with certain levels of support. I don't necessarily post on the group a lot because like I don't know how to do that. And I think that can feel like that sometimes. And I struggled when I was thinking about this podcast about really how to talk about Bo. Like he's delayed. He's really delayed. Like we have to work very hard. And I have a lot of sleepless nights figuring out what the plan for him is and what can help him and how he's going to move into the next grade or like have the best support. But sometimes it doesn't feel like dire enough to share with people and to post. Like it feels like I should just be happy with how he is. And I'm figuring that out, I think.
I feel like that gives us hope. Like when we hear you talk about that kind of stuff, it makes us feel better. So just coming from, Leah's 2 years younger than Bo, it just makes me, even as a mom, just feel better to hear those kinds of stories. So
Yeah,
if that
and
helps you at all.
especially because if I'm not mistaken, Bo and Leo have the same variation.
I think it's at the same spot. Yep.
So, especially to see when you share things about Bo specifically, that gives us a certain amount of hope for Leo. And then one more thing, and we'll let Meredith speak. But I find myself with Leo, kind of what you're talking about, of like not knowing how to handle it. Like it's weird because like I'm a big guy. We both come from big families, so Leo's big. He's 2.5 and he's the size of a 4-year-old, but he can't walk and he can't talk. So like I find myself, even like people ask me like, "Oh, do you have kids?" And like they can't even see Leo, and I find myself having to like explain like,
Hmm.
"Yeah, I have a son. He's 2.5." Yet I tell him, he also has an autism diagnosis. I tell him he has autism because I'm not going to go through the whole hassle of
Yeah.
explaining the genetic thing to him. But then I'm like, "Yeah, but he's big, but he can't walk." And it's like, why does that have to be a part of it? You know what I mean? But it's just so strange that feel like I have to justify it to literally nobody. So,
I know. I
just
think
kind of
that's something that we're all kind of constantly working through. And we were just talking about the other day, Meredith and I, and Stephanie is like, sometimes kids say something,
mhm,
sometimes adults hold their gaze on your child for a little too long. And it's like, where do you come out on it? Like I keep hoping, and I used to do the same thing, and probably I still do, Eli. It's like tell people things they weren't even asking. It's like literally like didn't ask, wasn't wondering, like, thank you for all the extra info. But I mean, I think already like my skin is a lot thicker than it was when I was at the beginning of this and thinking like, how are people going to receive him? How can we ever go to a playground? What do I say to the other parents? Like, I don't care as much. Like, we're going to the playground. And if a kid has a question, like I'm working on a child-friendly way to explain, like, why he doesn't play the same way or not able to answer, like, social questions as well as they might expect right now. But it's a process for sure.
mhm. Meredith, can you tell us about it starts with a V.
I call her Valley, but
Valentina.
Valentina.
Valentina and her diagnosis. I'm sorry, I'm so bad with names.
No worries, no worries. So she's our second child. With our first child, it was during COVID. He's 5 now. It was during COVID. He was a NICU baby. The anxiety was so high. And so with my second child, Valentina, I was like, okay, we are going to rock this. This is going to be so easy because we've done this before. We have this, NICU baby who I was like staying up all night watching to make sure he was breathing. Like we are like, this is gonna be easy street with baby two. Well, couldn't have been couldn't have been more off on that one. But so, she was born and she was like, and she's always been just like kind of easy because she's always been very quiet and very easygoing. But we started noticing things, and I can relate to what Aaliyah said, where, you have days of this like push and pull in your head of like, no, 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 this is normal. There's nothing wrong with my child, and like explaining away like every single thing that somebody brings up or that comes up in your head. No, no, no. It's just that, or I know so and so's kid couldn't walk until this time, or I know so and so's kid didn't roll, or, So when we first started noticing things were just like a little bit behind, right? Just a little bit different than our first experience. And my husband would say to me, well, you're with her more. Like, is she giving you anything back? Like, are you getting, feedback from her? Is she smiling? Is she like, interacting with you in any way? And I was like, no, but, like, that's just her personality. Like, she's just not like Ben. And like, that's okay. And then, more things started. And that was, like way in the beginning. And then around 4 months, her eyes were still crossed. And you know how infants, up until months, they say, oh, that's just their muscle strengthening. They can have crossed eyes until 4 months, and then you want to get it looked at. So at her 4 months checkup with the doctor, I was like, her eyes are still crossed. She sent us to a specialist. Valley was diagnosed with strabismus and had to have strabismus surgery at 7 months. So, we're thinking, she's going to get this surgery and everything's going to click. And, she'll be interested in things. She'll be interested in toys. She'll be, laughing and smiling. And, the doctor was kind of playing right into that, saying, yeah, she can't see anything right now. Like she was telling us, imagine what it would be like to be walking around cross-eyed. You would have a headache. You couldn't focus on things. So we were thinking this was going to be, the cure. So we get the surgery and her eyes are fine. Everything's great, but she's valley still the same. And, more time is going by. And I just was like, we have to look into this. Nobody was pressing me to do it. Nobody, I was still explaining away in my head, but I think that I always knew. I think that I always felt it, even though I wouldn't admit it to myself. So I pushed to go to neurology. I pushed to go to genetics. And the first stop was neurology. They said, okay, we'll test her for the big things, the big neurological genetic things. And I was like, great. And all of that came back negative. And I was like, okay, so it's nothing scary then. Whatever we find out from here is going to be nothing scary. And like that was like my mantra, in those months before finding out of it can't be anything scary because we've already got those big things like, like cerebral palsy and like just like those big, indicators are not there. So, but then they were kind of asking for more testing. Right. So I was like, well, we've already proved there's nothing wrong. Like, why do we have to keep going? She got her MRI back and they said, everything looks great. There's a slightly diminutive corpus callosum, which doesn't really mean anything, we were told. It could be somebody could come in with a half of a corpus callosum and be completely neurotypical. So, I'm getting just like consistent results like that. She's not having seizures. She's not, there's nothing that's like quote unquote scary happening. So the geneticist finally said, you know what, let's do the full panel. And I was like, okay, let's cross it off. And in that appointment where we decided to do it, she was like, listen, you're probably not going to even get an answer, which is frustrating when we do this test, but we should do it. We should cross it off. And, like you might just never know. And she'll just continue to develop, but be delayed. And I was like, that's what it is, right? That's what I'm hoping for. So we take the test and it's, weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks before we get the results. And I'm standing in my kitchen and I got the alert on my app on my phone. The results were in and I clicked it because I'm not waiting for the doctor. And of course, there are the results and immediately Google spiral and my heart stopped. And I was just, it's like I immediately in that moment, the person that I was fractured into this person that I am now. And it was just the worst moment of my life seeing that and then Googling and then realizing that like every sentence I read, it just kept getting worse and more dire and scarier. And I was like, how is this fair? I was already told that all of the scary stuff was off the table. And now you're giving me this? Like what, like, how is this fair? And it was just such a surprise of the worst kind and just the worst feeling you'll ever have in your life. And so I got those results. I'm an action person. I needed to know more. The form, that sheet that they give you, the PDF of explaining MCHS is just such bullshit and so sad. It's like this picture of this sad girl and, and then like just horrible, 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 and like generalizations for this population that's so tiny. And we had the genetics appointment, and the doctor said I didn't go to the appointment because I said, I already know what this is. I cannot hear a medical professional talk about my daughter that way. It was too raw for me. I couldn't hear it explained to me by someone who doesn't know her and by someone who doesn't even know what this is, has never come across it before. So my husband took her and he went to the appointment. I called in because I just couldn't be there in person. And I still struggle with that, by the way. I hate any kind of doctor visit, any kind of testing. I don't want to hear about her in a clinical way at all. I never want to, I don't want the patient I don't want her like in the patient form. I just want to live with her as she is because it's so much more joyful than how they make it out to be. But so at that appointment, they said, well, you'll probably never meet anybody else who has this. And you'll never come across anybody else who has this because it's that rare. And I said, okay, well, I'm already in a Facebook group. So, like, and then I'm like, you don't know anything. And then, they said, and I said, what does this mean? You have to tell me what this means. I'm getting this PDF from you of, these general things. And, Google says one thing and this isn't your specialty. And, this isn't giving me any idea of what her life is going to be like or what she's going to be like. And, they essentially just read me the sheet. And I said, so is she a vegetable? Like, is she stuck in her body? Will she, because they were like, never talk, never walk, like listing off these horrible things. And she was a year and a half. So, and at that point, I think she had just started sitting up and hasn't crawled yet. And I said, well, is she just trapped in her body? And, they didn't know how to respond to that comment, I think, and they didn't respond to it. But I remember that thought of like, is she just in there and she can't do all of like anything? Like is like, because it just felt so cruel, getting this diagnosis felt so cruel to not just me selfishly and my husband and my son. It like, of course, number one, it felt so cruel to her. Like, what is her quality of life? Like,
Yes.
that's what I was most concerned about. But yeah, so I didn't tell anybody about it for a while. Even our family, like I didn't know how to find the words to speak about it. I didn't understand it. I just thought it was so unfair. I felt so panicked about the future and what it was going to bring and what it looks like because I'm the type of person, or I was, previous me was the person who likes to plan everything out and know everything in advance and plan for the future. So that was really, really hard. And I have like a pivotal moment where I kind of pulled myself out of that thinking. I had this therapist come to our house. And she said to me, I want you to think about your life as like a glass of water. And she said, if I gave you a full glass of water right now, and I said, hold it out away from your body, all the way away for an hour, after 5 minutes, it would seem impossible. And you wouldn't know how you're going to be able to handle it. And if I told you to take that glass of water and hold it close to your body, you could do that all day. So she was like, I want you to live in that close to your body. I want you to live in the now. I want you to not think about the future because you can't control it and you don't know what's going to happen. And none of us can, but you're learning that the hard way. And I like that for some reason just snapped me out of how I was thinking. And I just was like, okay, I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to learn as much as I can. I'm going to know as many people as I can. I'm going to find my community and like, this is life. Right. And another thing that I realized recently, the neurologist said to me when I was waiting for one of the test results, I said, well, like, how am I supposed to wait for this? And she said, well, in the meantime, just enjoy her. And I wanted to slap her across the face and say, enjoy her. I'm waiting to find out like this dire news. I can't just enjoy her in the meantime. Like, I'm anxious. I'm scared. Like my skin is crawling off my body. Like, I need to like enjoy her. But now, where I am now, knowing what I know and knowing who she is and what she's grown into and like all of these little things that we've done since, I get it because I do enjoy her every single day and I do enjoy the ride and I am living like that glass of water and I'm planning for the future in a broad sense and I'm doing things every day that set me up for a better future, but I'm living in the now. So that's
Amen.
Right.
Yeah, you talk about those generalizations and how they're just kind of generally not very accurate. And something so my background is kind of in like wildlife biology and ecology, and so I worked in a crayfish lab in college, and one of the things that we worked on a lot was taxonomy. And in taxonomy, there's these things called junk drawer taxa, where like a good example is there's a family called Colubridae in snakes, and it's like, oh, we don't know how to organize this. We'll just throw it in Colubridae, and some entrepreneuring PhD student will come along in a decade and sort this all out. And that's kind of I don't think it's that dismissive with MEF2C because they just don't have enough data yet. But that's kind of how it feels because you've got someone with a complete deletion and someone with a stop variation and someone with a nonsense variation. And like there's 8 people in the world with this, diagnosed with the same variation that Leo has. So like on one hand, like you can't have data for that. You know what I mean? You can't make any reliable predictions for that. But also, it seems kind of unfair to lump that in with someone who has a complete deletion whose prognosis might be completely different. I don't think there's anything good that we can do about that right now. There just has to be more time and more information. But I think that can be the source of a lot of that frustration.
Yeah, I think a common experience for all of us in this club is that when you joined, the welcome materials were missing. And it's like there is a lack of you find a few scientific papers which populated that infamous brochure. But I don't think, and I think like, the hole that really we saw, and I should say, like when I got the diagnosis, joined the group, we met with James, it was a big light in the whole experience. The only problem was like it wasn't long enough and I didn't remember half of what he said. So when we kind of consider how we can make things better for the future newly diagnosed and for parents living with this today and having to explain it to insurance, explain it to teachers, explain to your pediatrician, like so much of what we want to do with the MEF2C Family Foundation is like use what we know as parents to create educational material for all of those audiences. Like you're a parent, here's some therapies that we find have really helped our kids. Like here's some info on just like what the range here is. That's something I wish somebody had told me and that I was looking for. I asked the geneticist, like, but is it possible that maybe he'll talk? And she said no. Like, so I wish that somebody had said, actually, like, we don't know. We really don't know how these kids will turn out. Nobody seemed to know, like, if they plateau with their learning at a certain age. Like, I know now our kids can learn. Like, it takes them more repetitions than typical kids, but there seems to be no end
Mm.
to when they're able to acquire new skills and learn new things. And I wish I had known that. And so I think a big part of what we're trying to do is to meet parents at that point of despair and say, listen, first of all, you're not alone. We've been where you are. We have some more info for you. We've put together some updated brochures and information that we've all put heads together from the doctors and from what we've learned about our kids to let you know a little bit more about common threads here. They all love to look in the mirror. Like, is a doctor going to tell you that? No. But also just give people hope because I think there's real reason to have hope, not only because testing is so much more prevalent now that kids that we're catching at these younger ages, we don't know. We don't know how they grow up and what they look like when they're older. And like science and technology are real and are in our favor. Like, thank God we are living in the time we are. We have learned so much already in meeting with other groups with genes that are quite comparable to MEF2C and who are much further along than us. And what we've learned is like the science is there. All it takes is us investing in it and being efficient and smart about how we support it and the path that
And
we take it
connecting the
on.
dots.
Connecting the dots and making sure that we're all represented, everybody, because like you said, I think that that's where the most scrutiny is needed. It's like we're not all the same and we need to recognize that and plan for that in any solution, whether it's a treatment that improves symptoms or a cure. And so,
But I think even just what you're saying, Aaliyah, like that was another thing for me that I heard from the doctors. Well, she has this and there's no cure and you'll never meet anybody. And it's like, okay, so like you've taken away all my hope and you've completely isolated me from the rest of the world. I think that's something that we're trying to change too because for me just the fact that I knew that there were scientists and researchers
mhm.
that were even thinking about this just instantly made me say, okay, there's hope. And I think that's, like the medical community, like they're not invested in this. Like, when I say the community, I mean, like the on the ground people who are the geneticists of the world and the neurologists of the, like, they don't know every single tiny
Mhm.
rare disease, rare genetic disorder that exists, because I mean, there's how many, 200 more a year that are being discovered. So fair to them, of course. But that's why I think, the foundation that we've started, but then also the ones that already exist are so important, because it gives you as a parent hope, and it tells you, like, keep pushing, like keep talking about this, keep looking yourself. So I think the hope aspect is something that's really important.
Yeah, and I think too is like getting involved, doing something about it. I think so many of us try to find a way to feel like we are furthering a solution, and that's not always easy. Like you guys are doing it in this way, we're trying to do it in the course of the mission of our foundation. But like I asked the geneticist, "What about a cure for this?" And she said, "Not likely with only 200 diagnosed, there's gonna be no money and no interest." And it's like, but they don't know us. Like, they literally haven't met us, and, let me tell you, like, us, you guys, the heads of these other foundations, the people who volunteer and who advocate on a daily basis for their kids in their communities, like, these parents are absolute heroes with, like, literal superpowers, and I know sometimes it doesn't feel like that, like, we just feel tired, and we
Yeah,
feel,
we're
like,
just we're
sad,
just
and
doing what we need to do.
yeah, yeah, but it's, like, something about this and fighting for your child is, like, they have no idea what we're capable of, and I really feel like by the end of my time on this problem, it's gonna be solved because of all of the people that I have met who are so exceptional and unbelievably motivated by something that's never gonna stop motivating them.
Right.
Yeah. Um, we're very fortunate in this community that both like we have some really like scientific studs, like some really qualified and smart doctors working on this. And we've talked about this a few times. Like in a good way, it was really intimidating at that dinner at Boston because there are tons of really accomplished professionals who are parents of MCHS patients who are applying their sort of drive to this issue. But it's a very good problem to have all these really accomplished people, in your corner.
I mean, we even say that on our board calls. We're like, when we were first forming, we were like, wow, you're really impressive. You're really
Yeah.
impressive. Like, we were all like, I'm a little intimidated by this group. And we're all brought together by the same thing.
Mhm,
Yeah. And what was cool with, like, us sort of finding each other and forming our group was that we have strong backgrounds, all different,
mhm.
subject matters. So, um, it's almost like fate, and I hate to say it, and I know people don't like to hear that, and things happen for a reason, but I say this a lot, which is that for that month that I cried in the shower and, like, anytime I was alone, and then, like, until I fell asleep, and then I'd wake up and remember what was happening and, like, keep crying, I repeated, like, "Why me?" Like, I truly couldn't understand, like, why is this happening to us? I thought I was somehow immune from that. Like, I don't know
Yep.
why, but I did. Like,
Everybody
I went
does.
my
Never
whole
even
life
crosses your
believing that.
mind.
And then, I got to a certain point where when I flipped to action and solution and thought about myself, my background, the resources I have to provide for Bo, but also to advocate for Bo and for all of these kids, I I say all the time, like, why not me? Like, I'm
Mhm,
literally the best
Yep.
person that they could choose to have a child with this. Like, you want me on your team and you got me. I'm gonna do whatever I can to solve this,
mhm.
for all of our kids. And that dinner in Boston was a really pivotal moment for me too, because I just remember kind of pausing and looking around at all of the kids and thinking to myself, like, we gotta do something big. Like, every single one of these kids deserves it and needs it?
Yeah, and, this is something that's come up on every other episode we've done, but you talk about fate, and ultimately, like, you'll never know if there was a reason for I tend to get a little philosophical, so bear with me, but you'll never know if there was a reason why you were given these kids. But if you believe that there was, then there is. Like, you have the power. There are things in life that if you believe them to be true, whether they're true or not, they become true. So if you believe that,
Yeah.
you're somehow an asset to this, then you are. Um, so what does life look like now for you guys with your kids? Leah, you can go first.
Sure. Well, oh my gosh. Bo, right now he's in preschool. He attends a typical preschool. That was a difficult decision that we made because of all of the services that he gets through the state. He qualified for like a special needs preschool, but he had already done 1 year at his preschool when we had that meeting and they made us that offer. And he loves his school so much. Like he runs in there every day and kids like stick their head out of their classroom. They're like, "Hey, Bo, hi." So we decided to keep him at the preschool. He has a see it who joins him there most of the day, each day. He does some services there. He gets speech there. That's it. His speech therapist goes there and then the see it. And then outside of school, he does OT, PT. We're looking at starting the PT on horseback, hippotherapy, again, which he loves. Horses are his favorite animal. He loves Blippi and like playing on this play set in our backyard. Our neighbors have a trampoline he loves. He doesn't jump yet, but he likes to be on it, which is fun. And he just went through a bunch of testing because of some like sort of new suspected seizure activity at night. He always only had febrile seizures, but he just had 2 EEGs, which showed some extra activity, especially at night. So he's just started an anti-seizure med. But other than that, like things are fairly stable for us right now. And he, again, like he's pretty verbal. He expresses himself, his needs and his wants, and it's like mostly 3-word phrases, some 4. He tells me every night, "I want hot bath." So he loves a hot bath, a hot shower too. It's got to be hot though. Sometimes it's not hot enough. More hot, more hot. So he's funny. Yeah, today I put dinner down and he went over and he said, yummy. And I've never heard him say that. Sometimes he's really, really surprising me. And I think I think it's important to say, like, it's come in such fast and furious waves. And there have been long periods of plateau where he didn't do a single new thing for 6
Mhm.
months. Like, and people would say sometimes when they're working on like their gross motor, they pause talking, and it's like, well, no, he hasn't done really anything new, like
Yeah.
physically
I've
or
heard that too.
cognitively.
Yep.
And then just when you kind of like lose hope, like I was pursuing, an AAC and getting ready to educate everybody in his world on his AAC, and he just like explodes with language all of a sudden. So I would say, like, I know that's kind of tough to bank on, and it'll happen in different levels, and you hope that it goes on forever. But we've been really just always really surprised. He's maybe had like one a year that lasts like
Mm.
2 months. That's really, really quick. And then, other things you work and work and work for. Like I have done hand over hand on taking off his shoes for 2 years now. Like I think he could if he wanted to, but he won't. He's never taken off his shoes. So hopefully that's included in our next in our next leave. But I'm super excited to be part of the team that's launching the MEF2C Family Foundation. I think that doing that, being involved with this group has done a lot for me personally, like in addition to the work that we're trying to do for the whole community. There is something about regular touch points with parents who get it, parents who have been struck by lightning in the same way that you have, that just makes you feel like inherently less alone and more normal. Like we're all normal people who this just happened to. And I'm lucky to be reminded of that on a weekly basis in our FF calls, and just have been like so blessed by the friendship of that group and so many others. Like parents in this community are so generous with their time and advice and support there are so many, like, who have totally, totally made a huge impact on me, and I'm so driven by that kindness to really turn around and find ways to repay it. So, that's what's going on with me.
Yeah, you talk about those developmental kind of jumps, and I hate to bringing obscure things from other places back into this, but in evolution, there's a concept of punctuated equilibrium. So people tend to think as things as gradualistic, where like processes that change in fixed increments very slowly over time. But what actually happens is like nothing changes for forever, and then a lot changes all at once. And that's been our experience with Leo for sure too, where he'll just like be almost static for, 3, 4, 5 months, and then in a week and a half, he's picked up 4 or 5 different things. So I think the parents out there just needs to be patient and trust that that's going to come.
Yeah, for sure.
Meredith, do you wanna tell us a little bit about your day-to-day life with your little girl?
Yes. So she is at a amazing, amazing school. It's called Ashford Rise School. I think there are, I want to say like three or four of the concepts. I think there's two others in Texas and one in Alabama. But basically what it was started by a family that had a set of twins, one with Down syndrome, one neurotypical, and they wanted them to be able to go to school together starting at an early age. So this school is 50-50 neurotypical and delayed children, developmentally delayed children. It is the best place in the world. I mean, all of the teachers have master's level degrees. She has built into her day, she has art therapy, music therapy, PT, OT, speech, and then I have outside services that see her at school as well on top of that PT, OT, speech. And she absolutely loves it there. I mean, in the morning, it's like we go to the garage and open the garage door, and immediately she starts like squealing because she knows where she's going and she's so excited. And she like just doesn't even say goodbye. Like and they try to enforce like little habits in the morning. So one is like blowing a kiss and saying goodbye. She will not. She will not say even because she is just trying to get into that room and start playing with her friends. And it's just the most inclusive and beautiful environment for her to be in, and the fact that, other siblings can go there too. It's amazing. She's always been the kid that has progression that progresses, like every time she's had PTOT speech in her life, like it's just always she's always progressed little inch stones. And so we're always encouraged by her, and then the tiny things that she does, or even the big things that she does, the inch stones, they just bring me the most happiness. I mean, there's no better feeling than when she masters something. And
Right.
she's so close to walking right now, like she's taking like 10 to 15 steps on her own, and it's just pure joy when she does it. But like I said, she was late to everything. It was a long road. One of the things that we love the most was DMI, dynamic movement intervention. They can only do it up to a certain age just because of like weight constraints. But for us, that was huge. Just like the repetition, and and what they do is so important, I think, for our kids. I think it's just, like, really something that works for our kids. But yeah, so she's in school. She has a really unique relationship with everybody in our family. My son is obsessed with her, and, he sticks up for her, and he goes into her crib every morning and jumps in there with her and tells her what we're doing for the day. I just hear them on the monitor chatting or him chatting and her kind of like, "Okay." She is not like the biggest fan of the baby, I would say. She's like there's like a little bit of sibling jealousy there. She just bit her, which was unfortunate. Um, her favorite person is my husband. She and my husband have this connection, like daddy-daughter, like, nobody can come between it. And he does bedtime routine with her every night, and he makes her laugh louder than I ever hear her laugh. It's every night, and her joy and, like, squeals and laughter and just, like, full belly laughs every single night. It's the best. And then I'm just like her person, I'm her go-to. And so it's like she has she's there. She's all there. Like I know what she wants. She tells me without telling me, like she's always progressing. She's always happy. And it's, I can't help but be encouraged by watching her grow up and what she's done for me, what she's done for the whole family. She's just so special. She's made all of us better people, and she's made all of us, just probably more happy than we could have ever been,
Absolutely.
How was Bo's process getting to walk? Did you guys use any, what are the braces? I get all that
AFOs, SMOs.
stuff like that.
Yeah, we didn't.
We're still in them.
Yeah, we had a relatively short road because he walked at 16 months. He sort of followed some usual process. What do they call it? Like coasts, whatever, when they walk along the couch.
Mhm.
He was doing that for a while. You could tell he was like he was jelly in the middle. Like it just always kind of looked like that, and you'd be like, "You good?" Like he always, and then when he started to walk, there was probably a month where he could just walk like on the wood floor inside. Like outside was just too much. No grass walking, no like street walking. So it took him a longer time to get stable in that way. But, I think I look back, I had him in like Crocs, like trying to walk. Like they need a solid shoe, like a good shoe. Like I think I made some missteps there, but yeah, he walked.
How about you, Meredith? Do you guys do any of that?
So we have AFOs, SMOs. She has a gait trainer at school that they use, and they do all kinds of like obstacle courses for her with like helping with climbing and like just kind of like balance reactions, because that's something that she's not always aware of, and that's something I noticed even when she was well, of course when she was a baby, but it would just always be like the floppiness,
Yeah.
like watching yourself and not having any kind of like reaction. So that's something they work on a lot. But, I think the gait trainer is something that really helps, and motivation. It's always been really, motivation has always been like that was something when she was born or when she was little that, well, why isn't she grabbing? Why isn't she? And I'd be like, well, she's just not motivated. Like you have to hold out Coco Melon, Wheels on the Bus specifically, and then she'll do whatever you tell her to do.
Yep.
There's
They're
like,
also like pretty happy kids. Like I would say,
Mhm.
like if some of the evaluators would say, so when he needs you to open a box, how does he get you to do it? And I would say, if he can't open a box, he'll put it right down and move to the next toy. Like he's good. He doesn't need the box. Like
Yep.
he doesn't have that. He never had that kind of like curiosity or that drive to
yeah.
get something open, to find his way. If you take it away, like he's mad and he cries, like he's always just
He's just like,
on to the
whatever,
next.
on
Yeah,
to
They're
the next.
content.
whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, we run into that with Leah with walking because I feel like, and this is where it gets frustrating with communication because I feel like if we could just explain to him that he needs to stand up and walk, like I think he's physically capable, but as soon as you try to make him do anything on his own, he just plops down on his butt and he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'll just clip clop across the floor and get over there." And if we could just coach him up a little bit, you know what I mean? I think he
Yeah.
could figure it out and build his confidence.
Well, I want to mention, in case like anybody now or in the future is considering this, is that one therapy that we don't do now, but ended up being very effective actually for Bo's expressive speech, was ABA. It was something I was really hesitant to do, and I sort of didn't understand why it was being recommended. I'm like, he doesn't have any behavior issues. He doesn't have any problem cooperating. Like he'll just do something if you want him to do it. But that drive, like having that strong motivation and then tying it to the desired behavior over, our kids need repetition. Bo does, over and over and over again. Some kids takes them 2 times, 3 times, 5 times to learn something. My kid, it takes him 50, 100, or 200 times, like depending on the skill. ABA gets you those repetitions. Him
Mhm,
just understanding if he wants something, he's got to say the word for it. You want it, you got to
mhm,
say the word for it. He never thought that before. And ABA, we did ABA for about 5 months. It really like sparked it in him. It got him to connect the dots about using your voice to express what you want, it just set him on that path. Before that, it was never his first move because he had developed a lot of other techniques for communication, which were not reliant on expressive speech. And we understood them, and he was able to use them. That ABA, and I don't know what other contexts it could maybe be used in the same way for, but for us, ABA was very, very effective in driving those results.
That's interesting. I've kind of like on the fence with ABA.
Yeah, I
Some of
think
the
there's a lot
providers.
of yeah, there's a lot of different styles. And I said no thank you to the first woman who came to our house who came right out with like M&Ms. But it's like, he's not a dog and I'm not going to do that. But
Leo is so food motivated though. Like that's how
well,
I got him to cruise on the couch. Like I would put his puffs on the couch and he would just cruise
and
and
maybe it's good for like for more gross motor things like that. Maybe that
Mhm.
makes sense. What ended up working really well with Bo was different songs. Like, he really likes music, so
Mm,
putting on a song that he liked, a certain they would only play part of the song, this Wheels on the Bus, he could listen to it 45 times in a row. Like, what part do you want now? If you say the mamas, I'll put on the mamas on the bus or the babies or whatever. And man, like, he really wanted to hear it and he did.
that's so interesting. That's such a good way to think about that because I haven't necessarily like leaned one way or another into that. But, we're right now researching into the preschools that we want to send Leo to. We just went to the one in our like local community last week, and I have been thinking about going to one of the ABA centers that we have local to us as well.
yeah, it's as I understand it, ABA is basically just operant conditioning, which is just like how most animals learn on a basic level. But it does seem like it would be tricky to do it with a person in a way that, like you said, they're not a dog, that isn't demeaning. I think at times it can get worse and be fairly harmful to people. So it seems like it's not necessarily a bad technique. It just is maybe tricky to apply it correctly.
Who's
Find a
doing it?
Yeah.
provider and how set kind of expectations with them. It's like, we don't want you to withhold to the point that he starts to cry. Like, I don't want him to
Mm,
get that frustrated.
Yep.
We have to give him the song. If he tries anything, like, give him the song. And eventually you work towards something closer and closer to babies. It
mhm.
doesn't start there, and it takes a long time to get there if you're us. For
Which
us,
is
just the
how that should be like, yeah, fundamentally, if you're gonna train an animal, like, that is how that would work too. I mean, I'm not equivocating your children to a dog again, but, like, just sort of at that basic level, that's how that should work. You get closer and closer approximations to the behavior that you want until you've achieved it. So it's not about, like you said, it's not about withholding things, it's about rewarding the things that you want.
Mhm.
Do either of your children use, AACs or PECs or anything like that at all?
No, and I did a lot of like manual trying with that. I have all kinds of people's faces and food thing and Velcro, and that, like, honestly made me crazy. Just like, they were everywhere. You can never find the right one. It's like, they want something that's not on there. I think it can work great in the right situations, or like if you want to really, like, you offer 5 snacks and here are the snacks, or you watch only 4 shows and here are the shows. But I could never quite get it right.
How are they with, like, eating? Can they feed themselves? How does that work?
We just had a big milestone. Valley started doing hand to mouth, and the fact that I mean, she's very clumsy. I mean, like, it is like starting from, we're starting from the beginning here, but, like, all of her movements are just like very fast and very aggressive. And so, like, but just the fact that I can put one thing in front of her, and she also has no control over like the amount. So if I put like a whole plate of food in front of her, it will be shoveled in and like she'll choke. So I still am, helping her, of course, feed. But the fact that I can put something in front of her and she picks it up and puts it in her mouth, or I'm in the car and I can turn around and hand her a goldfish. It's huge.
Yes.
Like that, you don't realize. I mean, I definitely didn't having Benjamin, being neurotypical as my first son. You don't realize just all of these little things that are so taxing, like feeding someone every single meal of the day and like having to sit there in one spot and you cannot do anything else. So it's like every single meal of the day, like you're preparing it and then you're feeding them. And so that was like one of the big goals that I told them at school this year. I said, I really want to make sure that she can feed herself in some way that she can pick up, put in her mouth. So that's huge. She grabs for the spoon now. She never used to be interested. Like it like didn't even occur to her. She loves food, but it never occurred to her to do it herself. So, and no matter how many like sensory activities I did with like, give her some yogurt to play with. Oh, give her hot things, cold things. Like none of that made a difference. It's the repetition. It's being at school every single day and the therapist sitting with her and, like just over and over and over. And it got to the point where I didn't even know she could do it yet. And so I'm still feeding her. And at school, her therapist, who's been with me, since she was 3 months old, said, "Can you believe that she's feeding herself?" And I was like, "What? I'm sorry, what?"
She
She
didn't tell
said,
me.
yeah, I was like, "I didn't hear that." So immediately I was like, "Oh my God." And like, that's the thing that I've been waiting for and I didn't even know. But so, yeah, it was the repetition over and over. It wasn't the sensory or.
Yeah, feeding, eating was a big source of stress for me for a long time.
But starting with breastfeeding or just
No, he was okay with breastfeeding. But, when it was time to transition to food, it was like pouch is the only thing that's working. And then it was like, okay, it's been like 5 months and still like pouch is the only thing that's really working. And I think when I took him to his speech therapist for the first time when he was about 18 months, who he still sees, she wanted to watch him eat. And I was like, he eats like at that point he eats little pastas and things and he loves bananas and she
my God.
watches watches him eat and she goes, he's not chewing, he's swallowing up everything whole. And yeah, the bananas, he would put half a banana in his mouth, just
Callie
stuff
was like that too.
because they can't, that it makes them feel the food. So chewing, I don't know how much of it was therapy and not. Like, I think exposure to the foods is important. I think apples do a lot for our kids who will eat apples. It really not only satisfies that sensory need that they have, but it strengthens the jaw. And my kid ate 2 apples a day for a really long time, and then, like, all I wanted him to do was be able to, like, eat pizza. We weren't even focusing that much on the spoon and the fork. Like, I dreamed I have to send lunch to school and it's like I want to send a sandwich. Like, he won't take a bite of anything. Like, I want him to squeeze and tear. That's what we say. We assign words and we always use the same word: squeeze and tear, squeeze and tear. And he eats pizza now. He'll eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. He uses fork and spoon with
So
pretty good accuracy.
I don't mean to interrupt you. When you say he eats like pizza or sandwich, does he pick up he picks up a whole slice of pizza and takes bites off of it?
Mhm. Not like a
Okay.
New York slice, like I make, frozen pizza and I'll cut them into pretty narrow triangles. So the
Mm,
picking up is not he's not like using 2 hands or anything, but he loves pizza and so he wants to, and I'll take it away if he stuffs a whole slice in his mouth, which he otherwise would. I think that's one thing he's really learned: squeeze
mhm.
and pull, squeeze and pull. So he tears it off. Sometimes it's definitely harder for him still than it is for other kids. I know that. And there's some sandwich, like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is the only sandwich he'll eat. Like, he's not making his way through lunch meat. He and a lot of other kids I see their lunch boxes have like little pinwheels. I'm like, how are these kids eating this? Yeah, the fork and spoon, I think, wasn't something that, I mean, remember thinking, like, I really, really want him to be able to do that, but I would serve him food that didn't need to use fork and spoon because I didn't want to sit there all the time. And I think through his other fine motor work, like, he just got to a place where he could handle those types of things, and it came.
I'd never considered like the sensory input of food before. That's really interesting that you brought that up because like now that I think about it, I forget what I gave Leo a while back. Maybe it was a brownie or something. And like I held it and let him, or no, I gave it to him and he took one little bite off it real nice. And then his eyes got real
It was
big
a
and he,
buttered roll.
oh, that's what it was. Yeah, it was
Mm,
like a Texas Roadhouse roll and he tried to shove the whole thing in his mouth. So maybe what happened is once he realized what it was, he wanted that input. But yeah, that Leo loves bananas too. And like I said, I hadn't considered that. So that's
But I think
really interesting.
the sensory input there, like I always say about Valentina, she's insatiable. She wants the brightest lights. She wants the loudest music. She wants the most flavorful food. If you try to give her like butter pasta, like which is the only thing my son will eat, if you give her butter, she's like, "What is this?" Like she's eating, chicken parm and like everything that we're eating, she's eating. And like it's that insatiable, like, I want the most. I want, like, like, the tightest
yeah.
hugs. She wants, like,
It's
the
like the
most
mom's
love.
reaction and yeah, the hugs, and that's what our therapist also said, like, if you want it like, we were working on grilled cheese, she was like, "Put some mustard, some, like, heavy duty mustard on it, like, so that they register, like,
Mhm.
something's in my mouth, like, I don't need to put the whole thing in order to feel it, like, I can actually taste it and work with this."
Yeah, they told us to experiment with, those, like, warhead, like,
Oh my
sprays?
gosh, yeah.
And they were like, "Spray that in her mouth and see," because she has a lot of, like, mouth sensory, like, it's, like, kind of how she explores, rather than
Mhm.
using her hands, it's always
Yep.
her mouth. Like, she has this thing about windows, like, every window in our house is, like, covered with Valley spit because she just like, goes up and, like, presses her face against it, and, of course, and then, we take her in public and people are like, "What is she doing?" She's just exploring. But so, like, at school, they told me at school they bought this spray and it's like and they'll put it on her fingers or they'll put it on, or they'll give her a lemon or like something that's like really sour to give her that sensory that she's seeking. And it's like I just think that's like things that I would never think of, that you learn along the way are so helpful.
$1,000,000 question, how do both of them sleep?
Sleep. What's that?
Right.
So Valley, when she was little, she slept actually pretty well. As she's gotten older, and I thought I cracked her. I really thought I slept trained her. I was like, it was right before I was about to give birth, and I said, I cannot do this. I cannot be up all night, like, or even one time a night with Valley. Like, she was stuck at this one wake up a night around like 3, 4 a.m. And I would just feed her. I would go to the kitchen, I would make her a bottle of milk, and I would give it to her. It has to be warm and I would give it to her, and she would sometimes go back to sleep, sometimes just be up in her crib. Um, so I thought I cracked her. It was like last year before I gave birth. Actually, it was like well before because I was like, I need to set myself up for success here. And I thought I did it. And then when I was breastfeeding in the middle of the night, and I can now see her camera, I'm realizing that she parties in the middle of the night from like any time from like 2 to 4. Sometimes she wakes up at 4. She's up just in for the day and she's just in her crib jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping and, like not screaming, not crying, but awake and partying and getting that energy out.
So funny you call it a party because I call it a party too. When I explain it to people, I'm like, he parties at night. We're partying for hours. Sometimes it's a split night. Sometimes he's awake for the day at 3
Love.
AM.
Yeah.
But yeah, we party.
But like
Yeah,
I just discovered this and I've chosen that I'm not going in there. Like unless there's something wrong, like that's your time, girl, you're in there.
Now, does she ever get upset? Does she like,
Yeah, sometimes she'll work herself up, and my son, the angel of my life, will go into her room and give her a light up toy. And he'll be like, Mommy, Valley was crying. It's like at like 6 a.m. He'll be like, Valley was crying, so I gave her her toy. Or we have this like disco ball in her room, and he'll be like, I plugged in the disco light. She's good.
oh
And
my
I'm just
god,
like, God bless you, kid.
literally,
An
angel.
actual party.
Yeah. Well, maybe I can offer some hope to you both because we similarly were like, we never figured it out. When Bo had a nap, I mean, it just never worked out. It was like he's so tired from the night, from being up in the night or from waking up at 3:30 in the morning and staying up since then that like you desperately need the nap, needs to start the nap at 10 a.m., needs to go 3 hours, otherwise can't make it through the day. Then if you nap that early, needs to go to bed at 7:30, it all happens again. I got some
You just
relief.
explained my day.
Yeah, I
And
got
you're doing
some relief and
mental
control.
calculations.
Yeah,
You're
oh
like,
my God, it's
okay, like this happens and
exhausting.
this happens.
It's exhausting, and it's like, oh, so anxiety producing. I got some relief towards the end of his, like, napping career. I would cap his naps at an hour or an hour and a half max, and that helped. And if you just stick it out for a couple days, like, okay, you're having a couple miserable days, but no matter what, you're not sleeping. You're not going to sleep before 12, and you're not sleeping more than an hour. The nights evened out for us a little bit. Still, like, I think he doesn't sleep more than 10 hours consecutively through the night. Like, there's a lot of 7 to 7 kids out there. Like, when he was younger and he would crash at 7:30, he's now waking up a minute after 5:30, and usually it's like 4:30, you know? So now he doesn't nap, and it has changed everything because there's no room for variation. It's like, go all day. You go to sleep when it's your bedtime, which is about 8 o'clock, and he sleeps until like 6:15.
That's great. Yeah, I know, but I don't feel like there's a whole lot of correlation between the length of his nap and whether he parties. But I know that if he naps or is sleeping from 2 o'clock or after, there's a definite party that night. So he could nap for 20 minutes in the morning and he can go for the rest of the day. Or he could nap an hour and a half or 2 hours in the morning. And I say morning, but typically around 11 is like ideal for us to get him to take a nap. And that I know like last night he slept all night. He slept from 7:30 to almost 6 o'clock. So I know he can do it, but there's no correlation as to why or what we did that made that happen.
We've also started putting a sleep sack on him
Oh
again,
yeah.
and we give him kind of a diluted dose of Miralax every day, and that's seemed to really it doesn't fix the parties completely, but it's really improved his sleep in general, so
Yeah.
We do
Interesting.
melatonin every single night.
due
Yeah.
to that
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
doesn't seem to help a whole lot, but
No, and you know what else doesn't work? Benadryl. It's never worked for her. When
It'll
people are
work
like,
for
"Oh,
Leo.
Um, will they so, like, Leo will if he wants to do something, like play patty cake, or my mom has this old it, like, looks like a TV and you wind it up and the screen rolls by and it plays songs. Will they grab your hand and have you do what they want them to do?
for patty cake, that's her favorite game, and whenever she's sitting on my lap facing me, she'll grab my hands and push them together because she's like,
Mhm,
"This is what we're gonna do now."
mhm.
I feel like
Did Bo ever do that?
my little one does that right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bo, I don't really remember Bo doing that. Again, it was like
Really handled.
if he couldn't do something, it was like not on his agenda. He's just like very pleasant, easygoing guy.
Are there any other, like, sensory needs or toys or anything like that that you guys have found, just sort of little things that you found that have been really helpful?
Apples for us, like the main thing is apples. And I think like I never would have given him an apple, like I would
Yeah,
have thought
Yeah.
he can't eat an apple, but
we talked
w-
about this the other day, and you suggested that for Valley, and I'm still scared. Like, I'm
yeah.
still scared to give her this
We
apple.
went apple picking. We live in New York, big apple pickers, and he was young, like I don't know how, just over 2, and got a hold when I wasn't looking of an apple, and I looked down and he'd taken a little bite of it, and he seemed fine. And it's like they can take little, they could just like kind of gnaw on it. I think I tried, of course, like with supervision, but if he started to grind his teeth, if I hear him grinding teeth, I'll throw an apple at the situation, and it helps.
Huh, interesting. We give
That is
Leo the
interesting.
chewers, but you just give him a whole apple and let him figure it out?
Yeah, we have a corer, so we core the apple. I'll usually just like or my husband will take one bite to start him off. Yeah, then we'll usually find some version of it, behind the couch at a later date. But he never took to the chewies. I got a million kinds of necklaces and things like that.
Yeah.
A little bit the arc, the red one, the really hard one. If he was watching TV and I heard him grinding, I'd give him that one. But he always took a passy at night until he was about 3 years old. And that whole time he was a big mouther of everything. Like everything went in the mouth. Everything had to be considered at school and in therapies. Beau can't do like shaving cream because he'll just put it in his mouth type of thing.
Mhm,
That's how Valley is right now, and I've never had to worry about that before. So, I have Legos here. I have like little mini cars. I took her to a birthday party and she was standing at the Lego table and I was just so excited she was standing there and playing with these other kids. And then I looked down and she's shoved a giant Lego in her mouth and it's like in her like all the way back. So it's like a new scary thing has been unlocked.
Yeah. And I'd
mhm,
use the passy as defense for those situations. Like if we go to a library and I don't want him putting like Jeremy things in his mouth, like I'll use the passy. And it was very scary to us to give up the passy, but we decided to do it around a little after his third birthday because we were like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember why. We felt like he could. And within a week of giving up the passy, like the following week, we heard from school therapists. I was able to do this. He didn't put anything in his mouth. I've noticed he's not putting anything in his mouth. There's somehow like there was some connection with that there was some kind of fixation about having something in his mouth a lot of the time with the passy. And then when he let that go, it didn't feel like things had to always be in his mouth anymore somehow.
mhm. Yeah, we'll find Leo just randomly, you'll look at him and he'll be chomping, and then it's like, you have to hold him down and he's not gonna stop chewing, so, he chomps down on your finger and it
Ugh.
turns into a whole thing. Um, okay, we'll ask one question about parenting, and then we'll let you guys talk about the foundation. So, what do you each think has been the hardest thing about being a parent of someone with MCHS? And then what is something that you think has been positive that you didn't expect?
For me, the hardest thing is being different. Touched on this a little. I don't like that people, can look at her and think and judge her in any way or judge us as a family. I don't like that she has to be like an outsider in any way. I think that, of course, all that comes with it of, why she's different, all of the above. But yeah, I think just being so far off from what I expected and what I had wanted or saw for my motherhood journey is really hard to come to terms with. There's this poem that really helped me about it's called Welcome to Holland. I don't know if you guys have read it. I think a lot of special needs parents have. That I read it and every after every sentence I was like, yes, 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 where you just feel like you're planning for something and then you're dropped off in a completely different location. So I think that has been the hardest for me to come to terms with, to not only like accept but to live with, and the comments you get from other parents. I had someone say to me, well, what does her life look like in 20 years? And that was just, it ruined my month, like it just was such a like, how could you ask that? What does your kid's life look like in 20 years?
Right.
Like the pity of that question, like all of it just felt so icky. And, or just, at a birthday party, when a kid will say, well, what's going on with her? Why isn't she doing this? Or, and it's just that whole being different and, everything that comes with it, I think. And just, being different to the outside world, but then being different from what I expected this to look like and feel like and be like as a mom. So that's been the hardest. I think the best thing about it is, like I said before, she makes every single person better version of themselves. And, and not just my immediate family, but, like our extended family and all of our friends. And I just think she brings so much joy and light into this world, and that like the lessons that these kids can teach are boundless and really important. And I think they're special little souls.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with both sentiments, Meredith. I think it's so hard. And I mean, the hardest moments are the ones where you're thinking too far into the future and worrying about how others will treat them in different situations. I think there are also like waves of realization of different things that will be different about their life than you expected, like realizing maybe you'll never drive, like, will you have kids? Like, just, and that's like that too far into the future thing. I think as a parent, like scary thoughts aside, it's hard to keep up with everything. These therapists talk to us as if we have 60 hours in a day. Here's what I want you to do at home. If one therapist says that to you, fine. Like, we'll work on that at home. But if you see 4 therapists in a week and they're all giving you new assignments every time you visit, it's like so overwhelming to be a full-time employee, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, a speech therapist, and a teacher at home.
And an advocate.
And an advocate, right? It is, and then doing all of those things, and somebody's, my child's see it can't come to school. Can I call like a replacement? Should he not go to school? Can I just go to school? Like, what should we do in any given situation? Things always have to shift. They wake up late. I have to tell like 4 people if he's not going to school. Like, I'm going to spend 20 minutes calling people. So and then you turn on your computer and act like you're the same as everybody else, and you're just like updating people on your work. It feels, there are days that feel insane and manic, and it feels like, gosh, wouldn't my life be so much simpler, and I would be able to like send a birthday card if I didn't have all this extra stuff to deal with. But like, everybody just needs to accept that I'm never going to send a birthday card. Like, I'm probably not going to show up with a gift. Like, we don't have outfits for Easter. We don't have we're not on top of it because we're doing a lot of other stuff. And I think it can feel like you're not doing a good job a lot of the time as a parent, but we just have bigger assignments, and it's hard. But, I think that we're all just doing the best we can. The best. Like, I said to Stephanie recently that, like, I feel bad for people who don't know the kind of love that our kids show us. It
Oh, of
is
course.
so absolutely unconditional and big. Like, it's so big. Somebody said to me before Bo talked and he was delayed in speech, somebody said to me, don't you just want him to say, another speech delay mom, so it was okay to say that. Don't you just want him to say, I love you? And I thought to myself, like, no, I know he loves me. Like, if there's one thing I know, it's that he loves me. Like, I want him to say, like be able to say to somebody else, my name's Bo, I'm 3 years old, like something functional, because I'm quite positive. Like, if I know something in my bones, it's that, like, man, do we have a love, me and that boy. And beyond that, like, my world has opened up. Like, it's as if my sky was 2 feet from my head and now it's all the way up there. Like, things have totally changed for me. I'm such a different and better person now than I was before I entered this whole world. And I have made like amazing friends. I talk to Meredith every day. Like, I can't imagine a world in which like I don't have these friends that I have now who I can go to with like my deepest agonies, and who really, really get me.
Understand it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, sometimes those agonies are about my kid, and like sometimes they're not. Like,
Mhm.
these are good friends. Like, these are people that I'll stick with my whole life.
Yep.
I think it's important to always remember that our kids definitely understand more than they're ever able
Yeah.
to express at any given time, and to like lead with that expectation. And
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, so we'll wrap up here. You guys can tell us a little bit about your new foundation and how it got started, and what you guys hope to achieve.
Yeah. Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think I spoke about it a little bit already, what drove us, the experiences that we have driven us to want to create something better for parents in our community.
Mhm.
And also, each of us wanted to have a meaningful role and part to play in this.
And we want to be able to offer that to other
Exactly.
parents.
Yeah. And so that's why we named this the MEF2C Family Foundation. Like, when we thought
Mm.
about what are we creating, this is for families, and we want everybody who wants to be involved to be involved. Like, we will find ways. We have long lists of things that we want to do, and where we want to be, and we cannot do that with 6 people. Like, we need the excellent parents that we have. Like, also, all of us are also dealing with children with special needs. Like, it's a lot to have on your plate to do that and this. And so, like, we really feel the more hands, the better. We want anyone who wants to join us to join us. And we're going to be having a lot of different, so we opened up a non-Facebook community platform. There's an app, and you can also visit it on web. It's powered by Mighty. It's called the MEF2C Community Connection. We posted the link in the Facebook post that Stephanie made. We're also happy to send it to parents who didn't receive it, or anybody who signs up for the newsletter on the website will get a link. Just parents, though. We want it to be like a safe, intimate space to share positive and negative feelings among parents. The support aspect is one we're really dialing into. And we're going to be also scheduling some forums for parents to get together regularly, because we've just seen that by doing that, and you guys are probably noticing the same thing. It's a game changer. Like, it's
Mhm.
so wonderful to connect with people who like I said, like, have just been struck by lightning in the same exact way that you have. We're going to be doing a monthly video hangout, and then, yeah, we're going to just kind of see who's interested and form different groups and set off on our various initiatives. Mary, what I miss?
Yeah, I think we just came together really because, we are looking to be inclusive and have everybody involved. And that goes for the scientific community as well. We want to be connectors. We believe that the answer to curing our kids, which is all of our goals, of course, or to giving our kids a better life, is out there. But it's not going to be just one avenue and it's not going to be just one person. It's going to be a lot of things because, as we know, they all experience different symptoms. They all have just such different situations, even with the exact same diagnosis. So, I think, that was big for us is, we want to be connectors because the world is our oyster. There are so many people who are working on this or should be working on this. There are so many things, I mean, with what AI is doing right now with drug repurposing. I mean, there's so many things that could already be out there that we don't know about. So, from the scientific side, we really just want to like open the floodgates in a way and just bring as many people as we can together. We want advocacy. We want the world to know about this. The more eyes on us, the better. There's a lot of different ways to go about that. So, like Leah said, we'll be forming, different groups within the foundation so that we can kind of help plan for that. And then, really, just number one is families. That is, we want better for the people who are getting this diagnosis. We don't want them to just have the same experience of having the worst day of their life and having a flyer, the same flyer that's been given out for 10 years, and, a doctor who says, you'll never meet somebody with this, or, sorry, no cure, no chance, like, go enjoy your kid. So, we want to have useful information. We want to have a toolkit. We want to have, hey, this has worked for us. We like these toys. This has worked for my kid. Here's some discount code to Billy Footwear, which works with AFOs and SMOs, or here's like a way to get involved. So really, this foundation is just, we want to work with all of the other foundations. We think it's strength in numbers. So like I said, inclusivity, connections, support, and we're going to do it. There's no other option. These kids deserve it and they're going to get it because they have the best people in the world as their champions. So
Yeah, our motivations are very similar because Haley had a conversation with Susan for like 2 hours on the phone where Haley found out about Andrew and called her, and she just talked for forever.
Tried
And
the entire conversation. It
right.
was
But
I
when
had
she
a
got off the
story.
phone, we were talking about it, and I was like, "Well, why don't we just record these?" Like the most value we found by far is communicating with other parents. Not that the scientific experts aren't important. I'm more interested in talking to the scientific experts because I want to use this as a platform selfishly to have an excuse to ask them my extremely specific and annoying questions. But and then be able to share those with people. But connecting families, and something that we've heard from pretty much every family we've talked to on or off the podcast is that there seems to be there could be more of a sense of unity within the community. I'm not saying that, there's a lot of different entities, and it can be confusing to navigate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Or I was very confused when I
We've
started
all had
this.
that experience. Yes.
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys are trying to bring people together,
Yes.
which is great. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We've linked to every other foundation on our website. We
Mm.
hope to closely collaborate, and we believe that we're doing something different. A lot of the existing organizations are very research focused, which is something that we support and want to help them further. But what we're doing, we didn't see yet, which is like we're listening. We're going to listen to every single one of your podcast episodes. We read every Facebook post and people fighting with insurance and they don't understand this and we don't have a diagnosis code. How do I explain to them? How do I explain to my pediatrician? Like, I want to delete my Facebook. We don't want to be here, but I don't want to lose connection with you all. We want to hear from everybody. And I think we're here to serve our community, and we hope you'll join us. And that's our motivation and our goal at the end of the day. Um, it's that simple.
Right. Well, thank you guys for your time. Our audience can reach us at mef2ccast@gmail.com. That's MEF2CAST@gmail.com. Or on our Facebook page. Again, thanks for giving up your Wednesday evening and talking to us. And we're really excited for what your foundation is going to do.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you,
us.
guys.